Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe has called upon all the political parties in Sri Lanka to come forward and help in the formation of an all-party government. The development has come after an all-party meeting on Saturday, and there will be another meeting on Tuesday to chalk out the governance model for an all-party. We have with us Ambassador Tayal. We would like to understand from him what is the significance of forming an all-party government, given that since the public protest, the mass protest, since April has subsided off late after the imposition of the emergency, but there hasn't been any positive development on the front of World Bank or the International Monetary Fund in accessing new bailout packages. Ambassador Tayal, how do you see the development?
Sri Lanka is in a difficult political situation, and they attempting to move forward as per the Sri Lankan constitution. And we saw that Ranil Wickremesinghe became acting president and then president elected by the Sri Lankan parliament as per their constitution. But the fact is that at present the Sri Lankan parliament, which is dominated by the Rajapaksa loyalists or their supporters, does not reflect the current public opinion of Sri Lankans. And in their constitution, it is to call another election of the parliament, the process is very complicated. So in this situation where the Sri Lankan parliament really does not reflect the will of the people, it is a parliament which was elected 2-3 years back when the situation was different, and Rajapaksas were supported at that time by the Sri Lankan people. But after these protests from April onwards, and we saw former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, he was forced to leave the country. But what we have seen is that the new government which has been sworn in by the new President Ranil Wickremesinghe also has a majority of those who belong to the Rajapaksa family and their party, and they were parts of the earlier cabinet and in many different ways. So this cabinet also does not have the real support and trust and confidence of the people of Sri Lanka, who came out united in very large numbers to throw out the previous dispensation. In their eyes, in many ways, the current president and the current cabinet is kind of continuation of the previous regime which they had tried to throw out. So in this context, it's very important that President Ranil Wickremesinghe's offer to have an all-party government is heeded by all the parties. But the requirement would be that there should be real sharing of power, and because the Sri Lankan people, Sri Lanka economy, Sri Lanka as a country will have to face many economic hardships as they try to reconstruct their economy and recover and come back on financial prudence, and that would require support of all the citizens of Sri Lanka. So it is very much required that when Sri Lanka negotiates with the International Monetary Fund and ADB or IMF or World Bank and other multilateral agencies, and those agencies will put conditionality which would require that Sri Lanka balances its budget, they reduce their foreign exchange expenditure, and it will have a direct impact on the quality of life of Sri Lankan citizens. So it is better that all the political parties come together and face this period of hardship collectively without fighting with each other.
Mr. Tayal, you have rightly said that there is a perception that the current dispensation in Colombo is seen to be a continuation of the previous regime which was led Gotabaya Rajapaksa. And a confirmation was for that in a baffling sort of event in which the Chinese spy ship Yuan Wang 5 was supposed to come to Hambantota port for about a week and that was the Sri Lankan government said that the ship would come for refueling purposes, and that too at a time when the people in Sri Lanka don't have access to fuel for their daily lives, and India has extended about $4 billion of credit line to ensure that the life runs normally. Very strange and very baffling. How come Sri Lanka do such a thing that it allows 5 ships to come in the Indian Ocean at Hambantota port?
This whole development is very worrying, and it makes that all of India's apprehension about China's entry into Sri Lanka, into Hambantota, are coming true. We in India know very well at every level, at our strategic level, military level, intelligence level, that China's plan is to neutralize India's superiority in the Indian Ocean region by way of our navy, and they are trying very assiduously, the Chinese government are trying very assiduously to cultivate both Sri Lanka and Maldives and wean them away from India's friendship and influence. And what we have seen is very baffling, as you rightly say. The permission for this ship to come was given on 12 July, on the day or one day before President Gotabaya was leaving. He had announced that he will leave presidency. So in that vacuum, somebody in some office, either president's office or some minister, foreign minister, or they gave the permission for this Chinese spy ship to come and for about 6-7 days, starting from 11th of August. But India protested very strongly and at different levels that it is a direct infringement of India's security, because this Yuan Wang ship is a military vessel and it is part of People's Liberation Army Navy's strategic support force. And once if such a ship is allowed to come and berth and stay in Hambantota, then it becomes a precedent. And then again and again the ships will come and India's security will be compromised forever. So it is good that India has taken a very strong stand, and for the time being the Sri Lankan government has responded and they have deferred the coming of the ship, but they have also said that until further consultation. So they have not called off the visit of this ship, because if this comes, then Chinese submarines will be next. And again, I will say that India has to work on Sri Lankan government along with our friends, whether they are in United States, whether they are in Japan, whether they are in Australia, and clearly tell Sri Lanka that Chinese naval ships should not be allowed to berth and stay for a long time on Sri Lankan ports. So India has taken a good stand, but we must work with our friends of Quad and as well as other friendly countries to send a clear message to Sri Lanka that they have to be very careful and not allow Chinese naval ships, submarines, spy ships to come and use Hambantota port.
And Mr. Tayal, another sad part is that while the people in Sri Lanka have been struggling to meet their daily essentials, even the United Nations Food Program has said that about 30 lakh people are in dire needs of immediate humanitarian assistance. We see that China at the max had extended about $73 million of assistance, despite bringing Sri Lanka into a debt trap. Why the Sri Lankan new government isn't waking up to the harsh reality that China is taking them to the bankruptcy already, and there is no way out, no help coming from Beijing?
I think the wisdom is dawning now on the Sri Lankan people as well as the Sri Lankan establishment that Chinese assistance is a poison pill and it will bind them to Sri Lankans to China in a long-term or subordinate position, and they will compromise their sovereignty. But certainly it seems that there are elements both in Sri Lankan political parties as well as in their establishment bureaucracy who are sympathetic to Chinese advances. But it is for Indian agencies to keep a close watch on any further attempts by Chinese Navy to come and berth at Sri Lankan ports. And it is not related to whether China gives even billions of dollars of assistance to Sri Lanka, but even then our security concerns are paramount, and we must tell Sri Lankans very clearly that such an opening of Sri Lankan ports, particularly Hambantota, to Chinese Navy, submarine ships, spy ships, will not be acceptable not only to India but also to their other friends like United States, Japan, Australia, etc. So I will not link it whether China gave, we gave $4 billion assistance to Sri Lanka. Even if China gives $4 billion, but even then they should not be permitted to use Hambantota support for activities which will impinge India's security interests.
Indeed, Sri Lanka must be aware that its waters should not be used for anti-India operations. Ambassador Tayal, you gave a lot of insight to the All India Radio. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.